The silent void. The stars seemed colder now. Captain Maya Chen had always found comfort in their distant light, but as she gazed through the viewport of the refugee vessel horizon, they appeared nothing more than indifferent spectators to humanity's suffering. 3 years since the shroud had arrived. 3 years since Earth's orbital defenses had crumbled like paper. 3 years of running, hiding, and watching humanity's numbers dwindle with each passing day. The massive alien fleet had appeared without warning, their sleek obsidian ships darkening the skies above every major city on Earth. They struck with precision, eliminating military targets within hours. Those who survived called them the Shroud, faceless, relentless, and seemingly invincible. Maya closed her eyes, the memories of that day still raw. She had been off-world when it happened, commanding a transport mission to the lunar colony. She remembered watching helplessly as Earth burned, as billions of lives were snuffed out in a coordinated assault that lasted less than a day. The organized evacuation that followed saved millions, but compared to what was lost, it felt like nothing. Captain. The voice broke through her thoughts. She turned to find Lieutenant Rafael Ortiz, her communications officer, standing at attention. His face was gaunt, like everyone else aboard the Horizon. Food was scarce, and hope even scarcer. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "We're receiving something unusual," he said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's faint, but it's definitely a signal. And Mom," he hesitated, "it's coming from Earth." Maya felt her heart jump. "Earth? That's impossible. There's nothing left." "I know, ma'am, but I verified it 3 times. The signal is coming from the Saul system, specifically Earth, and it's military grade, old UEF encryption. The United Earth Fleet had been all but destroyed in the initial Shroud attack. Any surviving vessels had joined the Exodus, forming a ragtag defense for the refugee fleet as it scattered into the depths of space. The thought that something, anything, from the UEF still functioned on Earth was almost inconceivable. "Let me hear it," Maya ordered, following Raphael to his station. The command center of the Horizon was cramped, converted from a civilian transport to serve as both living quarters and operations hub for their small fleet of 11 ships. Nearly 4,000 survivors were spread throughout these vessels, all that remained of the once proud Ganymede mining colony. Raphael's fingers danced across the console, adjusting parameters until a fragmented voice emerged from the static. "Project Titan. Active. Earth's last defense. Dreadnoughts online. Coordinates follow." The message repeated, cycling through a set of coordinates before starting again. Maya felt her breath catch. Dreadnoughts. The UEF had never built dreadnoughts. The largest military vessels had been cruisers, and even those had proven ineffective against the Shroud's technology. "How long has this been broadcasting?" she asked. "Unknown, ma'am. We only picked it up because we've drifted closer to the inner system than usual. The signal is weak, probably deliberately so. It's using narrow-band transmission. Easy to miss unless you're looking for it." Maya stared at the console, her mind racing. Could this be legitimate, or was it a trap? The Shroud had never shown interest in pursuing the refugee fleets that escaped Earth. They seemed content with claiming the planet and its resources. But what if they had changed strategies? What if this was bait to lure survivors back? "Captain," Raphael said quietly, "if there are UEF ships still out there, still fighting." He didn't need to finish. Everyone aboard the Horizon knew what it meant. Hope. A chance. Something they hadn't had in 3 long years. "Notify the other ship captains," Maya decided. "We need to discuss this." Within an hour, the decision was made. The risks were enormous. But the alternative, continuing to drift through space until their supplies ran out or their equipment failed, was a slow death sentence. 3 of the 11 ships would investigate the signal, while the others maintained distance, ready to flee if necessary. The Horizon, being the most versatile of their vessels, would lead the mission. "This is insanity," Dr. Elizambiki, their chief medical officer, argued during the final briefing. We should be moving farther from Earth, not closer. If the shroud detect us, then we die a little sooner than planned, interrupted Captain Hiroshi Tanaka of the transport vessel Sakura. At least we die trying something. I'd rather face the shroud than watch another child starve to death in my cargo hold. The harsh reality silenced further objections. Their supplies were critical, their power systems failing. The refugee fleet was dying, not with a bang, but a whimper. We leave in 6 hours, Maya announced. Prepare your crews. As the other captains filed out, Maya found herself alone with her XO, Commander James Chen. No relation, though the crew often joked otherwise. James had been with her since before the invasion, a steady presence in an unsteady universe. "You think this is real?" he asked, after the others had gone. Maya sighed. "I don't know, but Raphael's right. The encryption is authentic UEF, and it's not like the shroud need to trick us. If they wanted us, they could have hunted us down years ago." Dreadnoughts, James mused. "I never heard anything about a Project Titan." Neither did I. But then again, I was just a transport captain. There were always rumors about black projects, contingency plans. She shrugged. "Maybe someone planned better than we thought." James nodded slowly. "Well, either way, it's something to do besides waiting to die." Maya felt a smile tug at her lips, the expression almost foreign after so long. "Always the optimist. One of us has to be," he replied, returning the smile before heading out to prepare for their departure. The journey to Earth took 12 days. 12 days of tense silence, of scanning every asteroid and monitoring every fluctuation in space. But the shroud didn't appear. In fact, as they approached the outer boundary of the Saul system, they detected no alien vessels at all. "This doesn't make sense," Maya muttered, studying the sensor readings. "Where are they?" The shroud fleet had numbered in the hundreds when they attacked Earth. Even accounting for ships that might have left to attack other human colonies, there should still be a significant presence in the system. "Maybe they got what they came for and left," suggested Raphael, though he didn't sound convinced. "No," Maya shook her head. "They were terraforming Earth to suit their biology. That's not a short-term project." As they passed Jupiter's orbit, they got their first visual of Earth in 3 years. The planet was still there, still blue, though large swathes of its surface were now covered in the characteristic black structures of shroud architecture. But what caught everyone's attention was the debris field surrounding the planet. "My God," whispered James, as the sensors cataloged the wreckage. "Those are shroud ships. Hundreds of them. Destroyed. Torn apart by some massive force. Mixed among them were the remains of human vessels, but the ratio was shocking. For every human ship, there appeared to be dozens of shroud vessels. Who could have done this? Raphael asked, his voice hushed with awe. The answer came as they approached Mars' orbit. The signal they had been following suddenly strengthened, and a new message replaced the repeating broadcast. Unidentified vessels, this is Admiral Victor Sorokin of the United Earth Fleet Dreadnought Nemesis. You are entering a military engagement zone. Identify yourselves, or you will be fired upon. Maya and her crew stared at each other in disbelief. The United Earth Fleet had been destroyed. Everyone knew that. And yet, this is Captain Maya Chen of the refugee vessel Horizon, she responded, her voice shaking slightly. We are responding to a UEF distress signal. We have civilians aboard. There was a long pause before the reply came. Captain Chen, adjust your course to the following coordinates. You will be met by an escort. Welcome home. As the transmission ended, the sensors detected movement. From behind the red planet emerged a ship unlike anything Maya had ever seen. It dwarfed the Horizon, easily 10 times its size. Its hull was sleek yet bristling with weapon systems beyond current human technology. As it approached, the name became visible along its side. UEF Dreadnought PERS-EUS. And it wasn't alone. 5 more massive shapes detached from Mars' shadow, moving into formation. Earth's Dreadnoughts, a secret fleet that had somehow survived the initial invasion and now waged a guerrilla war against the Shroud. "Captain," Raphael called out, his voice filled with emotion as more data streamed in. They're winning. The Shroud fleet is in retreat. Earth's been holding out all this time." Maya stared at the approaching dreadnought, tears blurring her vision. After 3 years of running, of watching humanity dwindle to a shadow of itself, here was proof that the fight wasn't over, that someone had planned for the worst and built these titans of war in secret. For the first time since the black ships had appeared in Earth's skies, Maya allowed herself to feel something she'd thought was lost forever: hope. As the Perseus drew alongside the horizon, its massive bulk making their vessel seem insignificant in comparison, Maya couldn't help but wonder what other secrets Earth had kept. And more importantly, what this meant for humanity's future. The answer would come soon enough, as the dreadnought escorted them toward Mars, where the last great human military base awaited, hidden beneath the red planet's surface, preparing for the day when humanity would reclaim its homeworld. The day that was finally at hand. Titans awakened. The interior of the Mars base Olympus was a stark contrast to the worn-down refugee vessels Maya and her people had called home for the past 3 years. Clean corridors, functioning equipment, and personnel with purpose in their step. It was like stepping into the past, before everything had fallen apart. Admiral Victor Sorokin was not what Maya had expected. She had imagined a stern military figure, hardened by years of secret warfare. Instead, she found herself facing a man in his late 60s, with kind eyes that belied the weight of responsibility he carried. His office, carved into the Martian bedrock, was sparse but for a single photograph of Earth taken from space, the planet as it was before the invasion. 3 years, he said, after they had exchanged introductions. 3 years we've been fighting while the rest of humanity believed Earth was lost. I can't tell you how good it is to see survivors returning. We thought everyone was dead, Maya replied, still struggling to process the reality before her. The broadcasts from Earth stopped. The Shroud controlled the entire planet. Admiral Sorokin nodded gravely. They did, and still do, for the most part. But they never found us. He gestured toward a holographic display that sprang to life in the center of the room. It showed Mars, but then zoomed out to reveal a complex network of facilities buried beneath the surface. Project Titan was conceived 15 years ago, after our first deep space probes detected signals that didn't match any known astronomical phenomena. "You knew they were coming?" James asked, incredulous. "Not exactly. But a small group within the UEF leadership suspected we might not be alone, and that first contact might not be peaceful. They initiated Project Titan as a contingency plan, a last line of defense if Earth were ever to face an overwhelming extraterrestrial threat." The hologram shifted, showing massive construction facilities hidden within Mars' largest canyon systems and beneath its polar caps. Facilities that had worked in absolute secrecy, building the most powerful warships humanity had ever conceived. 7 dreadnoughts, Sorokin continued, equipped with technology decades ahead of anything in the public UEF fleet. Power systems, weapons, shields, all developed in isolation, off the grid, using resources mined from the asteroid belt. "But how did you survive the initial attack?" Maya pressed. "The Shroud hit every military installation within hours." A sad smile crossed the Admiral's face. "Because officially, we didn't exist. No records, no communication with Earth's regular forces. When the attack came, we were hidden here, still completing the final dreadnought. We watched Earth fall, unable to intervene. The fleet wasn't ready." The revelation hit Maya like a physical blow. They had been here all along, watching as humanity was nearly exterminated, forced to bide their time while billions died. "You did nothing," she whispered, anger creeping into her voice. "We did the hardest thing possible, Captain. We waited." Sorokin's voice was steady, but Maya could see the pain in his eyes. If we had revealed ourselves too soon, The Dreadnoughts would have been destroyed before they could make a difference. The Shroud overwhelmed Earth's defenses with sheer numbers. We had to let them think they'd won, let them grow complacent. And then, when the time was right, we struck. The hologram changed again, showing tactical displays of guerrilla engagements, hit-and-run attacks on Shroud formations, strategic strikes against their command structures, methodical dismantling of their communication network. For the past 18 months, we've been slowly turning the tide. Sorokin explained. The Shroud's numerical advantage is still significant, but they've never faced technology like ours. We've learned their weaknesses, exploited their tactical flaws. What makes these Dreadnoughts so effective when our best ships were slaughtered? James asked. Instead of answering directly, Sorokin stood. Come with me. It's easier to show you. He led them through a series of security checkpoints, descending deeper into the Martian facility until they reached a vast underground hangar. Inside was a scene from science fiction. A massive vessel under repair, its hull open in several places to reveal its inner workings. This is the Prometheus, Sorokin said with evident pride. Our prototype Dreadnought. She took heavy damage in our last engagement, but she'll fly again soon. Engineers and technicians swarmed over the ship like ants, repairing damage and upgrading systems. Maya approached one of the open sections, peering inside at technology she couldn't begin to comprehend. The heart of each Dreadnought is a quantum fusion reactor, Sorokin explained, following her gaze. Stable, self-sustaining, and capable of producing 10 times the energy of our previous generation reactors. But that's not what makes them special. He directed their attention to a pulsing blue core visible through the scaffolding. That is our true advantage. We call it the cognition matrix, an artificial intelligence system that operates at quantum speeds, capable of making tactical decisions and adjustments faster than any human or, as it turns out, any Shroud. Maya stared at the glowing heart of the ship. You built AI warships. Not exactly. Each Dreadnought has a human captain and crew, but the cognition matrix handles weapons targeting, power distribution, shield modulation, all the microsecond decisions that determine survival in space combat. It learns from every engagement, adapting to Shroud tactics faster than they can evolve new ones. As they toured the facility, Maya and James learned more about Project Titan's desperate fight, how they had initially focused on intelligence gathering, learning everything they could about the invaders, how they had discovered that the Shroud's technology, while advanced, relied on predictable patterns that the cognition matrix could exploit, and most crucially, how they had identified the hierarchical nature of the Shroud fleet, destroy their command ships, and the rest became disorganized, vulnerable. We're close to a tipping point, Sorokin told them as they returned to his office. The Shroud have lost nearly 60% of their original invasion force. Their reinforcements from whatever system they call home would take years to arrive, even at their FTL speeds. If we push now, with everything we have, we can reclaim Earth. Everything we have, Maya repeated. Admiral, with all due respect, 7 Dreadnoughts, as impressive as they are, can't cleanse an entire planet. Sorokin's expression turned grim. No, they can't. That's why I've been gathering survivors, anyone who can fight. That's why your arrival is so fortuitous. Your people, combined with the other refugee groups we've managed to contact, give us the numbers we need for a ground campaign. The implication was clear. They were being asked to join a war, to risk everything on one final gambit. And if we refuse? James asked quietly. Then you're welcome to stay here in safety, Sorokin replied without hesitation. We're not press-ganging anyone, but this is our one chance, Commander. The Shroud are weakened, confused. They don't understand why their victory has been stolen from them. If we wait, they'll regroup, adapt, call for reinforcements. This opportunity won't come again. Maya thought of the thousands aboard the refugee fleet, many of whom had never held a weapon. She thought of the children, the elderly, the sick. But she also thought of Earth, home, transformed into an alien landscape while humanity dwindled among the stars. "When do we begin?" she asked. The plan was audacious. Using the Dreadnoughts to engage the remaining shroud ships in orbit, a ground force would deploy to key locations on Earth's surface. Their primary target, the massive control spires the Shroud had erected in major cities, which served as the neural network for their terraforming operation. Destroy the spires, and the Shroud's grip on Earth would be severely weakened. Maya found herself in command of a strike team composed of her own crew and Mars-based soldiers. Their target was the Sydney Control Spire, one of 7 globally that had to fall simultaneously. Training was intensive but brief. They had weeks, not months, to prepare for humanity's last stand. The day of the assault arrived with grim finality. Maya stood in the deployment bay of the Dreadnought Orion, watching as her team performed final equipment checks. Through the viewport, Earth loomed large, beautiful from a distance, but scarred by the black veins of shroud architecture that crisscrossed its surface. Captain Chen. She turned to find Admiral Sorokin approaching, his uniform immaculate, despite the chaos of preparation around them. "Your team is ready." "As ready as we'll ever be, sir." He nodded, studying her face. "You know, when we received your signal, I almost didn't respond. 3 years of secrecy, of waiting for the right moment. It's hard to let go of that mindset." "What changed your mind?" she asked. "The timing. Your arrival coincided with our final preparations. It felt providential." He smiled slightly. "I'm not a religious man, Captain, but I do believe in humanity's resilience. Our stubborn refusal to be extinguished. Perhaps your fleet was always meant to be part of this final chapter." Before Maya could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The battle had begun sooner than expected. The Shroud had detected their approach. "It's now or never," Sorokin said grimly. "Godspeed, Captain Chen." The orbital battle was chaos viewed from the dropship window. The 7 Dreadnoughts moved with surprising grace for their size, their advanced weapon systems tearing through shroud vessels with surgical precision. But the aliens still outnumbered them, and for every shroud ship destroyed, the Dreadnoughts took damage in return. Maya's dropship plunged through the atmosphere, part of a swarm descending toward 7 targets across Earth's surface. Anti-aircraft fire from Shroud ground defenses lit up the sky, claiming several vessels before they could reach their destinations. Sydney Harbor came into view, now unrecognizable. The iconic Opera House and Harbor Bridge were gone, replaced by angular black structures. The control spire dominated the landscape, a twisted obsidian needle reaching a kilometer into the sky, pulsing with sickly green energy. "Brace for landing." The pilot shouted as they took a hit, the dropship spiraling before he regained control and brought them down hard in what had once been the Royal Botanic Gardens. The ground fight was brutal. The Shroud, so effective in space, were less adapted for terrestrial combat, but they made up for it with superior numbers and defensive positions. Maya's team fought street by street, building by building, pushing toward the spire while coordinating with other strike teams across the globe. "We're losing too many people," James reported grimly, after they had secured a defensive position in a half-collapsed shopping center. "At this rate, we won't have enough forces to breach the spire's main defenses." Maya looked around at her battered team. They had started with 80. Now fewer than 50 remained, and they still had to cross 2 kilometers of heavily defended territory to reach the spire's base. Her comm unit crackled to life. "All ground teams, this is Admiral Sorokin on the Nemesis. Be advised, we've suffered critical damage. Orion and Athena are lost. We cannot maintain orbital superiority much longer. You must reach your targets within the next 30 minutes, or extraction will be impossible." The news hit like a physical blow. 2 Dreadnoughts destroyed, their window closing fast. Maya made a decision. "James, take half the team and create a diversion to the west. Draw as many defenders as you can away from the spire. I'll take the rest and make a direct push." "Maya, that's suicide," he protested. So is waiting here until the shroud reinforcements arrive. She gripped his shoulder. We don't have to survive this, James. We just have to finish it. Understanding passed between them. The grim calculus of war, where victory sometimes cost everything. What followed was the most desperate hour of Maya's life. Her reduced team fought with the ferocity of those who know they won't see tomorrow, cutting through shroud defenses with reckless abandon. James' diversion worked better than expected, drawing significant forces away from their approach. When they finally reached the base of the spire, only 12 of Maya's original team remained. The structure's entrance was heavily guarded, but a well-placed explosive breached the outer defenses, allowing them access to the interior. The inside of the spire was alien beyond comprehension, organic technology fused with crystalline structures, pulsing with energy. They fought their way upward, toward the control center their intelligence suggested would be near the top. 6 floors up, Maya's comm crackled again. All teams, status report, came Sorokin's voice, tense with urgency. One by one, the other team leaders reported their progress. 3 had reached their targets. 1 had been completely wiped out. 2 were still fighting their way in. Sydney team here, Maya responded, breathing heavily as she took cover behind an alien console. We're inside, approaching the central chamber. 5 minutes to objective. Make it 3, Captain, Sorokin replied. Perseus and Nemesis are making the suicide run to clear the remaining Shroud fleet. Once we engage, you'll have 3 minutes before their reinforcements can respond. The Admiral's meaning was clear. He was sacrificing the remaining Dreadnoughts, and himself, to give the ground teams their chance. Maya's team pushed forward with renewed desperation, eventually reaching a vast chamber at the spire's heart. Inside was a pulsing crystal structure the size of a small house, suspended in an energy field, the control node. Set the charges, Maya ordered, as her remaining team secured the room against the inevitable counterattack. They had brought 7 experimental fusion bombs, developed by Project Titan specifically to destabilize Shroud technology. As the last charge was placed, Shroud forces broke through their defenses. The fighting was hand-to-hand now, desperate and brutal. Maya watched her team fall one by one as they held off the aliens long enough for the detonation sequence to complete. When only she and 2 others remained, Maya activated her comm for the final time. All teams, this is Sydney. Charges set. Detonation in 30 seconds. Report status. 4 confirmations came back. 5 of the 7 spires were rigged to blow. It would have to be enough. The last of her team fell as Maya backed toward the control node, firing her weapon to keep the advancing Shroud at bay. When her back hit the crystal structure, she felt its energy prickling against her skin, almost alive in its malevolence. For Earth, she whispered as the detonation counter reached 0. The explosion tore through the spire with impossible force, the specialized warheads creating a chain reaction that spread through the Shroud's neural network. Maya Chen died instantly, as did thousands of Shroud across Sydney. In orbit, Admiral Sorokin watched from the bridge of the Nemesis as 5 massive energy signatures erupted across Earth's surface. The spires collapsed in spectacular fashion, their destruction sending feedback through the entire Shroud network. The alien ships still in orbit suddenly lost cohesion, their coordinated attack patterns dissolving into confusion. It worked, his XO breathed in amazement. The ground teams did it. Sorokin nodded, a mixture of grief and triumph washing over him. The cost had been astronomical, thousands of lives, including those of brave officers like Captain Chen. But as he watched the Shroud vessels begin to retreat, abandoning their positions around Earth, he knew it had not been in vain. Send the signal to all surviving human vessels, he ordered. Operation Homecoming is a success. Earth is ours again. 3 months later, James Chen stood on a hill overlooking what had once been Sydney Harbor. The Shroud structures were still there, dead now but too massive to easily remove. They would serve as monuments, reminders of how close humanity had come to extinction. and the sacrifice required to pull back from that brink. The rebuilding had begun. Ships arrived daily, bringing survivors from across the solar system and beyond. The Dreadnoughts, or what remained of them, now served as orbital defense platforms, their advanced technology being studied and replicated to ensure humanity would never be so vulnerable again. "She would have liked this view," said a voice behind him. James turned to find Admiral Sorokin, one of his arms now a prosthetic after the injuries he'd sustained in the final battle. "Yes, sir, she would have." They stood in silence for a moment, watching as work crews moved through the ruins below, reclaiming their world piece by piece. "The Shroud will be back someday," Sorokin said finally. "Maybe not next year, or the next decade, but eventually." James nodded. "And we'll be ready." The Admiral smiled faintly. "Yes, Commander, we will." He gestured toward the horizon, where the framework of a new city was beginning to take shape. "This time, we build knowing what's out there. This time, we stand united." As the sun set over the reclaimed Earth, casting long shadows from the alien ruins, James thought about Maya and the thousands like her who had given everything to make this moment possible. Their sacrifice had not just saved humanity, it had transformed it. No longer naive wanderers in the cosmos, but survivors, hardened and ready for whatever the universe might throw at them next. The stars would seem less cold now, less indifferent. They were still humanity's frontier, still filled with dangers. But they had faced extinction and emerged, battered but unbroken. Earth's dreadnoughts had turned the tide, but it was human determination, the unbreakable will to endure, that had truly saved them all.